During the height of the Human Covenant War, colony after colony were being attacked, invaded, and glassed by the Covenant military. This time was a period of severe confusion, as official information given by the Office of Naval Intelligence, the UEG and the UNSC all downplayed the severity of the war and just what losses humanity were taking. Unofficially, communication lines between colonies were spotty at best, and when a colony was attacked, it went dark and no further communications would come from that planet. There are very few within the UNSC who actually know the extent of the severity of the invasions and just what modus operandi the Covenant chose when invading a planet. One can only imagine the horrors that would be seen on the streets of the city if you were unfortunate enough to still be planetside when the Covenant touched down. There are sporadic reports of just how gruesome these invasions could be, including but not limited to the massacre of every man, woman and child in their way, the bombardment of huge swathes of cities, and isolated incidents of surviving humans being rounded up or hunted for sport, even being eaten upon being killed. The horrors that have been witnessed by people who survived these incidents likely left a mark on them for the rest of their lives. But we don't ever hear much information about this. We only ever hear about how successful certain campaigns were against the Covenant, and how humanity's greatest soldiers, the Spartans, flanked by thousands of brave men and women, won out against impossible odds against the Covenant machine. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today we're taking a step away from the glory, away from the awe, and taking a closer look at one of the very few incidents where a survivor actually documented their survival and their escape from a besieged city. In particular, we're looking at Sadies' story during the invasion of New Mombasa. But first, let's get to know Sadie. Although the first time we meet Sadie, she's already a teenager and a resident of New Mombasa, she was born around 2533. Her mother was a very passionate public defender and was unfortunately killed by one of her clients when Sadie was still very young. Her father, Dr. Daniel Endisher, ended up raising Sadie after this point and was a prominent scientist and resident of New Mombasa, and was actually largely responsible for the management of the Superintendent AI, the very artificial intelligence that managed the city. Knowing that with his commitments to work he wouldn't be around Sadie at all times, he actually programmed a subroutine into the Superintendent AI called Virgil, which was a subroutine designed to take care of Sadie and keep a protective watch over her as she moved through the city. Though initially resenting this intrusion into her life, she also simultaneously adored Virgil. This subroutine proved to be invaluable to both Sadie, other survivors, and members of Alpha 9 during the invasion of New Mombasa, which commenced on October 20th, 2552. And this is where the record of Sadie's story begins. Sadie was actually leaving New Mombasa by train to enlist within the UNSC when she was caught by Virgil. After some convincing, Virgil let her go right as the Covenant arrived in New Mombasa. Sadie promptly contacted her father at the Superintendent's data center, who attempted to tell her about a discovery that was made the previous day. The discovery in question was in fact the Ark portal. Before he gets an opportunity to fully explain, Sadie cuts him off and tells him that she intends to go downtown to try to save him from the Covenant. Immediately after cutting off contact with her father, New Mombasa Police Department Commissioner Kinsler and Officer Mike Branley arrive in a Husiv G-Net car modified for use by the NMPD. Knowing Sadie through her father's work, he offers to pick her up. She initially accepts, and then is told that Kinsler was actually planning on abducting her to rape her. When Mike hears this, he immediately stops the car and kicks Kinsler out of it, leaving him on the streets of New Mombasa, and then commences to refuse to bring Sadie to the war zone that is now the city centre, After a brief exchange, Sadie tells him to stop the car so that she can look for her father on foot. Mike relents, pulls the car over, and allows her to do so, leaving her in the market district. Sadie continues towards the city centre on foot, talking to her father on her chatter. It is at this point that her father tells her that the Covenant likely only came to New Mombasa because of Virgil's discovery, because of the Ark portal. Before he can continue, however, Sadie interrupts the conversation to meet Jonah, an 800-pound butcher who was calmly giving away his kebabs to the crowd escaping from the city from his butcher shop. Sadie urges the man to flee from the Covenant with the rest of the refugees. Jonah condescendingly informs her that due to his massive size and weight, he is unable to keep up with the boisterous mob around him, going so far as to say that he would take too many seats on a bus, train or boat, stating that he is not worth 5 people. Instead, he had just resigned himself to the fact that he was going to die in New Mombasa. He urged Sadie to go and find her father, and she vowed to return for him with a forklift. She was, alas, never given the opportunity, meaning he did most likely die within New Mombasa. Sadie attempted to recontact her father, but due to the panic now emanating from the city, most of the ATMs with built-in video phones had been destroyed or looted. Sadie did manage to find a working ATM with a video phone, and attempted to contact her father. However, an individual referred to only as the crony threatened her with a shotgun to get out of her way so she could loot the machine. When a Covenant Phantom landed outside, Sadie immediately took cover. However, the crony ultimately decided to continue her looting. A brute attacked her from behind, ripping the ATM from the wall and pinning her under it. As she attempted to defend herself and the ATM, one of the brutes executed her with a mauler. During this time, Sadie was hiding within a dumpster, and it is at this unfortunate moment that Sadie's father decides to contact her back using her chatter. This draws the attention of the Covenant troops in the area. Before they have a chance to kill Sadie, Mike returns with his car and runs them over before they have the chance. Shortly after this, Sadie explains to Mike who Virgil is, while he follows her over the main bridge leading to the island of New Mombasa. As they cross the bridge, Commissioner Kinsler, now armed with an SMG, arrives in a New Mombasa Police Department Pelican dropship. But before this encounter could turn particularly ugly, Virgil redirects an elephant and crashes it into the Pelican, unloading its entire content of waste onto the Commissioner. Sadie then opts that the elephant is probably one of the best bets to continue to cross the bridge while being relatively protected. Once Sadie and Mike get inside of the elephant, Sadie continues talking to her father. It is shortly after this that Tom Uberti, a salesman who had hitched a ride on the elephant, is discovered by Sadie and Mike. Sadie's father tells her that 7 Hurugok, or 7 engineers, were trying to repair the superintendent before they attempted to escape their Covenant captors, and that then 6 of the engineers sacrificed themselves for the 7th. Upon hearing this information, Tom overreacts and attempts to negotiate with Covenant in the area. Up until now, a Wraith, which is patrolling nearby, had ignored the elephant simply because they were known to be automated machines. However, now the top hatch was open and Tom had drawn attention, the Wraith turned on the elephant. Mike and Sadie immediately attempted to get out of the machine, and just as they did, the elephant is destroyed with a Wraith plasma mortar. Tom is killed instantly. Sadie attempts to contact her father yet again. However, Commissioner Kinsler shuts down the superintendent. Mike then explains that Virgil could be reactivated from New Mombasa Police Department headquarters. After entering the police department headquarters, they are immediately taken hostage by Marshal Glick, an ex-cop who had become increasingly unstable and had also had a run-in with Mike earlier on in his career. During this heated encounter, a man enters the lobby via the elevator and Glick immediately kills him. Shortly after this, a SWAT team storms the lobby with flashbang grenades and manage to kill Glick after losing a couple of the men themselves in the ensuing firefight. Sadie and Mike then decide to continue to the communications headquarters. Sadie, thinking on her feet, picks up a stapler and conceals it. Upon confronting the on-duty officer at the communications headquarters, Sadie uses the stapler as a concealed weapon and attempts to persuade the on-duty officer at gunpoint, so to speak, to turn Superintendent back on. The officer gives in to their demands and reactivates the Superintendent. Mike, up to this point, had been periodically hearing propaganda messages being broadcast across the city, and has now gotten to a point where he is fed up of them. It is at this moment that he realises that the propaganda messages are being broadcast from within the station. He confronts the person broadcasting the messages, who counters and says that the only people listening are people hiding from the Covenant. Mike drew problem with this simply because the propaganda messages seemed to be giving them hope moments before they would likely be killed. When the station goes back on the air, Mike attempts to tell the truth and finds himself telling the same kind of lies that the announcer before him had told. Unfortunately, Commissioner Kinsler also overhears this broadcast and contacts the propaganda station. He explains to Sadie that her father is being held hostage in the data center. He demands that he meet him at a train station alone. A while later, Sadie and Mike arrive at the train station and find Commissioner Kinsler's private train guarded by corrupt police officers who are firing their weapons into the crowd of refugees desperately trying to flee the city. Sadie gets aboard the train, and Commissioner Kinsler tells her that he had killed her father, and that he is planning on capturing the one remaining engineer to become a war hero. Meanwhile, outside, Mike was rallying the refugees to storm the corrupt police officers. After the corrupt officers are taken down, Sadie tells Virgil to open the doors of the train. The mob flood into the train and kill Kinsler. After the extended information that Sadie had received from her father in regards to the engineer, Sadie makes the choice to attempt to go and save the engineer. Virgil, however, using recorded dialogue from many individuals that she had met during her travel, tells her that the Office of Naval Intelligence will eventually come and get it, and urges Sadie to leave the city, telling her in her own father's voice that it is very, very proud of her. Sadie pleads with Virgil to let her stay, acknowledging that it is all that she had left of Mombasa and of her father. But Virgil refuses to do so. Finally, with the help of Mike, Virgil convinces her to leave. The train pulls out of the station and Sadie is successfully evacuated from New Mombasa. Virgil was indeed saved by the Office of Naval Intelligence and particularly the members of Alpha 9. However, Virgil was now integrated into the engineer quick to adjust. Oni decided to let Sadie become Virgil's handler, as Virgil retained its fondness for Sadie even as part of the engineer. At some point onwards from this, in 2555, Sadie was captured by the United Rebel Front forces from Talitsa, the intention being to lure Virgil into enemy hands. However, they were rescued by the remnants of Alpha 9. As of 2558 and the start of the created conflict, Sadie and Virgil were rescued from a secret Oni base on Luna, now under created control, by elements of Alpha 9 as part of a secret Oni mission regarding the United Rebel Front. Sadie and Virgil joined Alpha 9 in their mission, with Sadie's knowledge of AIs, both from working with Virgil and from what she learned from her father, proving useful against Leonidas, the now created controlled AI who was formerly in command of the Spartan 4 training station. Sadie and Virgil eventually joined the rest of Alpha 9 aboard the UNSC Infinity, and it is presumed that is where they still are. Sadie's story is a very rare insight into the chaos and horror of a Covenant invasion. It outlines how panicked people can become, the fact that chaotic moments can draw the worst out of people, but also the best out of people. It's these human-centric stories which give the Halo universe such depth, and are of particular interest to me. Seeing human resilience coming out of a chaotic situation has always been storylines that I've been keenly interested in, and in truth have written some fan fictions myself in that regard. There is still so little we know about the Human Covenant War and just what went on all of the colonies that were glassed. And I'd like to start looking at some of these situations a little more closely, bring to light the horrors of the war, but also to shed light on the average civilian and their experiences groundside during an invasion, to see how they cope with the chaos and confusion, and find those stories of the heroes who emerge from the chaos. Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below, I look forward to what you have to say. If you want to see the full terminals from Halo 3 ODST detailing Sadies' story, the link is in the description. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons: Neek, the Silent Cartographer, Brian, Sebastian, Red Sea, Darian, Stalker of the Realms, Falcon X003, Alvin, DW, and the Revanche, the Holders of the Mantle, Andre, Austin, Black Biscuit, Dreaming, Henry, J Rabbit, Kaiser, Reclaimer 216, Samantha, Spartan A498, Squire Young, Silex, The Death Mantle, and Thin Ice, my Reclaimers, Bastion, Chris, Critical Analysis, Daniel, David, Deep Cover, Dylan, Flaming Halo, Guppy, Harbinger, Ice Lord Cryo, Josh, Verbal Statue, Kenneth Marine, Mickey, Molshar, Nightrise, Spesigo, Starlight, Zach and Zach, my Metarchs, and all the other patrons that have jumped aboard to support the channel. You guys are awesome, and all of this wouldn't be possible without you. If you like Halo lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Be sure to support us on all major social media channels, including Discord, and if you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and joining the domain and the list of beautiful human beings who exist there, and supporting the channel over there, or indeed becoming a channel member by hitting the join button. It would mean the world to me and would free up more of my time for me to put into this content and other Halo related goodness. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.